You know, some people enjoy composing their own music, chord by chord, and others are happiest when they come across that one perfect song. Work is not a lot different than that. Whether you prefer building your own workflow or using a pre-made template, with Monday.com, you and the team can work in a way that's comfortable for everyone. Tap the banner to go to Monday.com and build your own amazing workflow, or find an awesome template. No judgment.
Welcome to the RuPaul's Drag Race Recap Show for Season 12, Episode 9, titled Choices 2020. My name is Joe Betance, and I am joined, as always, by one very concerned citizen. From the podcast pod is my co-pilot. Please say...
I'm asleep already. Boring!
To Taylor, the Latte boy. Hello, Taylor, the Latte boy.
Hello, Joe Betance.
Yep. Everyone should know. I feel like I start every show like that, but everyone should know that if you are not a Patreon supporter, you just missed our Just Between Us Girls segment where, what did we talk about, Taylor? We talked about someone calling me a fat, disgusting Phantom of the Opera troll.
And we talked about things based in reality. Yeah, that's true. We talked about facts, and then we talked about perceptions.
Yes, that's true. We talked about my mom telling me she made pudding.
We talked about Animal Crossing, because that's all that's going on in the world.
Yeah, we talked about how you saw my nipple.
Yes. And we talked about my disappointment for the week.
Oh, yeah.
All happy topics. Just
if you really want
girls.
If you want to hear these wonderful happy topics that Taylor and I were talking about, just go to patreon.com/afterthought.
We were laughing a lot though through it. It's not like where we were just
it wasn't morose. It was a lighthearted version of the foibles that life throws at us.
Foibles, what a great word.
It's also my drag name. Next up, foibles. I know my drag name.
What song would foibles do? What song would be where the fringe curtains open up and foibles comes popping out? What song would foibles do?
I have it right here. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay.
Remember when you ran away and I got on my knees and begged you not to leave because I'd go berserk? Well, you left me anyhow, and then the days got worse and worse, and now you see I've gone completely out of my mind. And they're coming to take me away, ha-ha, they're coming to take me away, ho-ho, hee-hee, ha-ha, to the funny farm where life is beautiful all the time.
I don't know what's more concerning, disturbing, that you... that's the song she'd come out to, or that you were able to pull that song that quickly.
Fast typer. I think you can hear me typing on the show.
Is that what Foibles would do? She would come out and she would type really fast in front of everybody?
Oh, Foibles is the fastest typer. But you know what's so funny is we should have talked about this in Just Between Us Girls, but you know, as we all know, my drag name of choice is Latina Faye, right? Mm-hmm. And but I was thinking, like, God, I really am liking more and more the drag name Sciatica. That might be my alternate drag name, because I have sciatica, and I just keep thinking it's such a great, like, I can actually hear RuPaul saying sciatica coming down the runway, you know?
Right.
Thank you. All right.
She's back again. She's lower back again. Sciatica.
All right. All right. This week, the queens try to make Ru laugh in a kitty litter quick trick drag mini challenge. For the maxi challenge, the contestants become political candidates in a debate titled Choices 2020. On the runway, the category is Stars and Stripes Forever. Jada wins over the moderators, and judges take home this week's win, while Jackie and Widow fall to the bottom. After a lip sync battle for their lives, Jackie is told, "Shantae, you stay," while the Widow Von Du is asked to sashay away Taylor the Latte Boy. Give me 2 things you liked about the episode and 1 thing you did not.
All right. I enjoyed the episode, considering we got, 3.5 hours of Drag Race last night, which I'm glad this Celebrity Drag Race is only 4 weeks. I can't imagine doing this ongoing. I thought the debate was good. It was enjoyable. There were definitely some stronger than others. But everybody, with one exception, was pretty good. I thought was at least got a couple of things in that were pretty funny.
Yeah.
The one not being Widow, where Widow just yelled. Something else I liked is when they talked about doing we talked about in the Meet the Queens, the color theme of red, white, and blue. That is one of my favorite. I've talked about I love 4th of July, and I love just that color scheme together, that color family together. So I loved the idea of the theme for the runway this week. And particularly, I loved Jackie's look because of this, and we'll be at that when we get to that.
Could you say that again? Because you Skyped out. I started with you love Jackie's look.
Okay. I loved Jackie's look. I feel like it was definitely it brought up a lot, I think, for everybody. Mm-hmm. And I think it was definitely something that was in some ways a teachable moment for the viewers, but potentially a teachable moment for the world. And I thought that there is a lot of bravery for wearing that because of possible ramifications for that after last night's episode war. So I appreciate and love that. But I loved a lot of the looks for that. The thing I did not like was it feels like once a season, she has the queens do something where it feels like she's making fun of them, or she's forcing them to really kind of lose a lot of self-respect. And the kitty litter mini challenge felt like that. It almost felt at times like she was making fun of some of the girls. Mm-hmm. And the idea that these girls are fighting for $100,000 and they have to do something where they potentially have to sit in kitty litter and act like they're going to the bathroom and that sort of thing was just not. I was embarrassed for some of the contestants and thought that it seems like at least once a season she does something like that, and I don't like that.
We'll get to when we get there, but yes, there were. I didn't think about it until right now when you said that, but now that I think about it, there was somewhere I'm like, ugh. Because there's some that handled it with grace.
Yes, no, I agree with that.
But then there's some people, But then there are some people who look like, oh, wait up on do, poor thing. I did talk about that. Okay, the 2 things I liked. I actually really liked, I don't know who this Rachel Bloom is. I didn't watch this Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. I know you're a big fan.
Oh, we loved Crazy Ex-Girlfriend in this house.
Yeah, but I thought she was a very good judge. She was able to, it's kind of rough, I think. Not many people accomplish this, where they're a big fan, they make it known they're a big fan, but then also they're not cloying. They're not like trying to show off what a big fan they are.
Yeah.
And I think she accomplished that. She was a very competent judge. And I thought she was really, really good. Next, the looks. Believe it or not, I actually really liked the looks. I can't even really... Were there any that were bad? Not that I can think of. Maybe,
one whose name we don't speak.
I have to remember. I'll have to look when I see that. But look, they look like the 4th of July, which makes me want a hot dog real bad. But also... It's my birthday, so anything that reminds me of my birthday, I'm gonna like.
That's why I love the 4th of July.
Because it makes you want a hot dog real bad?
Yes, because it's your birthday and it makes me want a hot dog real bad. A freaking chorizo!
Yeah, in fact, that's often what I do say when it is my birthday. In fact, I have a recording from last year of me for my birthday. Here it is. Whoops.
Only in America now, a woman like me have a freaking chorizo.
We don't use the soundboard enough on this show.
We don't use the soundboard as much as we used to.
Yeah. Okay. Here's what I don't like. I just got to tip my hand a little bit when I think about something else. They come down on this Jackie Cox for being one note on the debate, which is sure, right? Fair assessment.
Yeah.
I'm so sick. And don't get me wrong, I like this person as a drag queen.
I know where you're going. Because I remembered last week when you said this. Go ahead.
I'm so
Can I guess?
Yeah, go ahead.
Can you guess? Oh, no, I could guess what the... Never mind. I can't do it.
This Heidi's whistle. I'm so sick of it. Okay, we got the joke. It was funny the first time. It was cute the second time. It was meh the third time. Now I'm like, okay, we get the joke. You can do a whistle with your teeth.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm done with it. You know we're going to keep hearing it until it's either the finale or the end of the line for her. Who knows where she goes? I know where she goes. I'm not going to say. Anyway. Goes right in the closet.
Yeah, no. When she did it and did it multiple times last night, I was just like, Joe is rolling his eyes.
Oh, I was like, enough. Yes, I definitely was. Anyway, okay, well, let's jump right into the episode. After Jan's elimination, the queens reminisce about Jan's constant chipper attitude. Widow congratulates Heidi on her first main challenge win, and Gigi feels defeated after her first week of negative critiques. The next day, Heidi, do you have anything to say about the top of the show here?
No, it was weird that they showed so much Jan. I get they were trying to prove a point by showing how chipper she was and everything, but usually you just don't really get them replaying old clips. And you can kind of start to see Gigi get in her head a little bit.
Yeah.
With this, where she's realizing, she goes, I don't like the way this feels.
Yeah. I'll be honest with you, at the end when she says, "You will never see me in the bottom again," I was like, I got kind of scared.
Yeah.
Anyway. Okay. The next day, Heidi in Closet announces her name change to Heidi Hydrates before RuPaul enters the workroom to announce this week's mini challenge.
So, for today's mini challenge, you're auditioning for the title of Kitty Girl 2020. Now, you've got 15 minutes to get into quick cat drag.
All right. Jackie gets herself a win before. Oh no, let's stop here. Let's talk about the mini challenge. We can also go back to the top of the show too if you have to. Mini challenge. Your thoughts on the mini challenge?
Well, as I said, I don't like one. It feels very close to what they just did in All Stars, where they all came out like in the cat outfits, which I thought was weird that they were so close together as far as themes that were similar to that. I appreciated like Crystal trying to be like the beginning of Crystal, where she kind of stopped mid conversation and knocked over the vase. I thought was funny and that sort of thing. But then once she did think where she was like squatting in the kitty litter, it was a turnoff for me. And that's when I realized like, oh, they're making fun of these girls. That this isn't where they're supposed to act the fool, and I didn't. I think some handled it better than others. I thought Jackie was pretty funny. It's clear Jackie, because Jackie loves that era of television, and that era of performer. So it makes sense that she would do the Eartha Kitt, but it also felt very like, okay, we get it. You can roll your R's sort of thing. Yeah. Whereas I thought there were things that Gigi said that were very funny. I've noticed though that Gigi's idea of comedy is just very flat affect. That if she does this thing where she says things very quickly and very flat affect, there isn't a lot of variation there on what she can do.
This Gigi, all she does, because she is not good at comedy, is her idea is to channel Kate McKinnon. All right?
Okay.
It's so funny. There is a comedian that I knew. I wouldn't even say I know him. I knew. And I'll give a hint as to what I'm talking about if you've heard past episodes. About the person is about the first time I ever met him, he was coming out of the bathroom and it smelled like poo.
Yes.
And the criticism I've always had of his stand-up is it always seemed very derivative, like he was channeling both Jim Gaffigan and Jack Black into a character when he does stand-up. I don't think it's true with his acting. But when he does stand-up, it seems like he's just doing his version of Jim Gaffigan and Jack Black. Okay?
Okay.
And with I know they're Gigi's own words, but she's taken Kate McKinnon's SNL persona, and especially in that cat, it's like, what would Kate McKinnon do as a cat? Yeah. And that's what it sort of felt like. Mm-hmm. But I think you know what's so funny, and I said this earlier, is I never thought about what you said with the challenge, but you're very right. And I think the one that rings true for me the most is Widow Von Du.
Yeah.
Where if it were a white person doing what RuPaul did to Widow Von Du, it would have very big racial implications, you know?
Yes.
If Carson was like, here's a little dot, jump for the dot on the wall, you know? Yeah. It just felt very like, it did not feel good to me. Now that I think about it, because I remember even kind of cringing with Widow, but I couldn't place why I was cringing with Widow's performance, but I think that's what it was.
Well, and Heidi's as well, like Heidi, where she was sort of down on all fours, and she was just like, oh, I love the toy, sort of thing, and was all wrapping it in her teeth, and there wasn't anything necessarily drag about it. It just felt it felt demeaning. That might have been the mindset I was in when I first started watching this episode, but I didn't like it.
I made a note here on my notes. I actually have notes this week. And I always have notes, but let me rephrase. I actually have typed out notes.
Okay.
And one of the things I want to do, because a lot of times I'm going like, what did I write? What did that mean? Is I think this is something we do in our Golden Girls recap that if you're a Patreon supporter you have access to, is to point out references that the children might get. You know what? Now I think about it, there were a bunch this week, and something in the debate happened. I can't remember what it was. I didn't write it down. But a lot of people, I don't think, know the Eartha Kitt reference, and then she makes an Adam West reference. Do you want to explain who both are?
Well, Eartha Kitt was a singer, an actress really from the 40s, I think, up through she was Yzma in The Emperor's New Groove. And she was known, a lot of people really know her for being Catwoman on the old Batman series in the 60s. Yeah. And she spoke, she kind of definitely had that inflection in her voice of where she would roll R's very, in a very sexy, enticing way. But she did that a lot on Batman as Catwoman. So that she had a very velvety, where she talked very fast like this, and then she would sort of thing with her voice. So I knew exactly that's what he was doing right away, and it makes sense considering that he has talked about his love for I Dream of Jeannie, and a lot of his fashion choices are based kind of in that late 60s, early 70s. That would be where he would go as far as a cat goes. Yeah,
it makes sense, and of course he wins. He plays to RuPaul's sense of nostalgia. So RuPaul would obviously really like, an Eartha Kitt reference, who's also a very gay icon for especially that time. The gays loved her. And then Adam West was, the original Batman. Okay, are we done with the mini? I'm sorry, what are these things called? Mini challenge.
Mini challenge.
Yeah. So Jackie gets herself a win by playing to RuPaul's nostalgia. And then RuPaul announces this week's Maxi Challenge.
For this week's Maxi Challenge, you'll be speaking at Choices 2020. The most fabulous presidential debate in history. Each of you will present your platform and answer probing questions from the free press. From tucking in public to the right to bear breastplates. No drag issue is off the table.
All right. While the girls work on their political platforms, RuPaul enters with her political advisor, Raven. Heidi adopts Raven's line, "Fuck the GOP, get into the GAP," after Ru laughs hysterically at that. Gigi says she's afraid of politics. Raven asks Widow if she has a prescription to wear her ugly shoes. Jada plans the mudsling. Jackie speaks on her political activeness. Her political activity despite not being an American citizen. And Criddle, what is wrong with me? I had enough sleep. Crystal considers herself a walking political statement in her conservative hometown. Taylor Latte Boy, your thoughts on these table visits?
the bottom half of Raven's outfit was horrible.
Horrible. It's so funny that
it was way
horrible.
too it looked like she was wearing a thong backwards, and it was distracting.
Yeah.
I normally really love Raven. Raven's been somebody, she was one of my favorites on season 2, even though she was, technically maybe one of the villains. And I loved her in All Stars. I feel like she has definitely softened over the years. She's not quite as hard as she was. I don't get quite why the things she was saying were so over the top funny for RuPaul, like with the screaming, laughing and stuff. I don't know if that's where RuPaul's secretly scared of her, that she's going to fuck up her makeup or what it was. But it just, there were times that I was like, that's not that funny. It's humorous. Some of the jokes she was making were humorous, and Raven is very quick with the wit, but I don't quite get the levels.
Look, I think the fuck the GOP get into the GAP speaks to RuPaul's super simple, corny dad joke humor. That's something that makes RuPaul laugh so hard. To me, if someone would have made that joke, it would have been my response. That would have been my laugh at that. RuPaul scream laugh, but also it shows, if you want to hear it, listen to that laugh and then go back to Snatch Game. You never hear that laugh. You hear a forced impersonation by RuPaul of that laugh, but that's a real RuPaul laugh. That's what RuPaul laughs like for real. And you don't hear that in the Snatch Game. Just want to reiterate that for all those people who want to do that much research. I do think Raven did give some good advice. I will say that. And I think it's, maybe Vanjie wasn't necessarily a good example of this, but Raven is bringing in veteran drag queens from the show to give advice in the table visits.
Yeah,
I've said for years. Go ahead.
I think it's a good idea, and I think that part of that is maybe people are. It plays a couple of things. Where one, it's less work that Ru has to do.
Yeah,
where it's less Ru talking, and it's also one of these where Ru. It kind of takes the, one thing that we have seen, and you see a lot on social media, is people talking about how Ru gives contradicting advice to girls, where she'll tell a girl one thing, and then the next week she comes in and tells her the exact opposite, and it's confusing. So this kind of takes the responsibility off of Ru, where Ru could say, I didn't say that.
Yeah.
Raven said that, or Vanjie said that. I didn't, And also, these girls have also experienced what it's like to go through this. One of the things that I liked with Raven was that she said, when I think about it, it wasn't fun anymore. And I got in my head. You have to stop getting in your head. Yeah. I think that them bringing in all of these girls is a good thing.
I've said for years, RuPaul doesn't want to do anything anymore. I think maybe this will be the last thing. She should make Carson and Ross the Tim Guns of the show, and they do the table visits with a former drag queen. Former contestant. And she's not even doing the table visits, I think that would be more valuable. The queens, I think, would be more open.
Maybe their segue, maybe for a season 13 or 14, maybe we'll see that, where she's starting to slowly bring them in every once in a while. And then maybe it's where next 13, she's got them in with her every challenge. And then season 14, it's Ross or Carson that come in. She comes in, does the mini challenge, introduces what the maxi challenge is, and then says, and Carson and a guest will be in to talk with you guys later.
Yeah, and if you think about on Project Runway or now this other, what's it called again? Master Thread?
Making the cut.
Master Thread's a good name, though.
Master Thread. I think there was one called Master Thread.
Oh. Is Tim Gunn isn't on the judges panel.
Right.
After he does that, his version of the workroom visit, he you don't see him anymore. So that's not a bad idea either. To have someone who's just like a coach who's not on the judges panel. I think the girls would be more open. To that. All right. One thing I wanted to say is that this RuPaul goes to Jackie Cox and she goes, "Wait, are you politically motivated?" I'm like, bitch, she just cried like 2 episodes ago because she was in the presence of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. What do you mean is she politically motivated?
Well, but that's just that they have backstory that she's got to figure out a way to crowbar that in, wedge that in.
Yeah.
Do you think that Queen's previous contestants, when they see something of theirs being used on Drag Race,
Oh, like choices?
Like choices. Do you think that is considered like a feather in their cap? Or do you think that is like I just had something taken from me and now it's become, because I mean, I think a lot of us know that it was Tatiana who came up with choices in All Stars 2. But is that something where it feels like it's been, do you think feels like it's been taken away from her? Because I saw that she posted something on Twitter, just like, where's my check kind of thing.
Oh, really? Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know. I also think it's a case-by-case basis. On this one, because it's not something they say all the time, I would... Also, it depends on who it is. I'll give you better examples. I think with Tatiana, maybe she's like, whatever, right? I don't know what maybe Tatiana's feelings are. Mm-hmm. But, Adore Delano famously borrowed, and I'm using air quotes for people who are just listening, a party from Mayhem Miller.
Yeah.
And Alaska, I can't remember who it is, got the bye, and she's open about it from some other drag queen who's never been on the show.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering if those drag queens, if they have some sort of resentment. Like Mayhem Miller, she's been on the show, but for all intents and purposes, that's Adora Delano's line now.
Yeah.
It doesn't belong to her anymore. And same thing with that drag queen. If she does it, it's like, you're
doing Alaska.
Yeah. Now they think it's Alaska's. And now RuPaul, but even going further, RuPaul has now absconded that. And now on the end of every one of her episodes, she and Michelle go, bye,
Yeah.
Weren't they doing it at the end of each episode too? At the end, do they do that now? At the end of the episode, when right before the logo comes on, don't they go bye? They were for a while. I don't know if they're still doing it. They were for
last night was a weird ending.
What happened?
With the whole Jeff Goldblum standing by himself on the... Was that part of reference to a movie or something? Or was that just a...
I don't know.
Okay.
We'll get to this Jeff Goldblum. We'll get to it.
Okay.
Trust me. You know what, Taylor? Let's do this right now because we're at a natural breaking point here. Let's actually take a break right here. And when we come back, we will talk about Elimination Day. But for right now, we'll be back right after this.
This is Amy Poehler. My new movie, Disney and Pixar's Inside Out 2, is coming to theaters June 14th, and it's making me feel joy and sadness and anger, definitely some disgust, and I think a little fear. But I'm also feeling these new emotions like anxiety, embarrassment, envy, and ennui.
It's what you call the boredom.
Okay, that one was weird. It's going to be the feel everything movie of the summer. Disney and Pixar's Inside Out 2. Rated PG. Parental guidance suggested. Only in theaters June 14th. Get tickets now.
And we're back. It's Elimination Day, and the queens get ready for the debate and discuss politics. Crystal tells the others about her Trump-supporting parents. Jackie reveals her family's struggle with Trump's travel ban. Widow speaks about the fear that people of color have of being in a majority white spaces. And Jada emphasizes the importance of providing information to misinformed family members. Taylor, your thoughts on this Elimination Day?
I have not mixed feelings. I was surprised at how openly they were saying Trump's name.
Yeah, I was surprised.
Which I know in the one, because it doesn't necessarily make the show evergreen. But also, and I get it. Mm-hmm. I get why we're talking particularly about this, but my one thought is, what is this? There are people who watch the show who are conservative leaning to some degree, or they support the current administration. Mm-hmm. And I just wondered what that would be like to be like if you were a log cabin Republican, or you were something, what that would be like to hear them talking so openly and with such understandable venom towards the current administration. Mm-hmm. I just was very surprised. That surprised me, because I know in past when they have talked about other things going on, it seems like they try very hard to not put a distinct pin in what's going on. I also get that this is airing during an election year. You know, we have the register to vote fines. register to vote signs at the end of each of the episodes. And, with AOC coming on I get that Rue is pushing an agenda, understandably so. And I'm glad to see that. I just was surprised at how far they pushed this week.
Whenever RuPaul talks about it, she's pretty oblique, but they let the girls do it in the elimination day in the workroom by themselves. I don't know why we know where RuPaul stands, but the girls get to do it themselves in the workroom. And it's one of these things. It's so funny is you were talking about whether this is going to be evergreen. It won't, but here's a really rough question. This has nothing to do with the quality of the girls or the contestants or the show or anything. I just feel, and I've said this before on other episodes, that this is a show that's going to be buried and no one's going to revisit for a while. This is a show that in 2025, we're going to be like, oh, remember season 12? We should revisit that one, and look at that again. And let's judge it on a new level. Because, so I think in a weird kind of way they've lucked out in that
people aren't going to only true fans of the series are going to go back and watch. Yeah. And hopefully in 2025, it will be completely different. And they'll go, oh yeah, they talked about that guy that was president for that one term.
Well, even in 2025, even if he does,
it
won't be him.
Oh,
you're still thinking upend the Constitution?
Yeah.
Okay. Was there any? Let me touch on each one here. Crystal talked about her Trump supporting parents. That was very interesting because just a couple of weeks ago, she was talking about her father has Parkinson's, and I wonder how much of the audience was like, "Good." I wasn't.
Oh God,
I wasn't feeling that, but I was thinking there are a lot of people who really hate Trump.
No, I miss my father very much. My dad died about 5 years ago. And there is part of me that I actually, with all of this going on in the world, I thought to myself, I'm not glad my father's dead. I'm glad my father's not here for this, because my father was a huge, he loved The Apprentice. And I remember when we were kids, he had the Art of the Deal book, and he just thought that Trump was just the greatest. He's like, you stick it to the man kind of guy. Yeah. And I feel like this would have broken my relationship with my father if he was alive to see him. He would have been one of these guys that, So I don't know.
I've talked about this before, and I'll talk about it again. I had an uncle who was very religious, but when I say he was a Christian, right? But when I say he lived it, he wasn't a hypocrite Christian. He was like one of these guys who was a really good man, very, very Christian, very, very Republican, and was a very good person, but lived it. And this brings up another topic I want to bring up too that I was talking with another friend about. But anyway, I remember during the Trump campaign, he was very pro-Trump. Just loved it, right? And this is a true story I'm going to tell you. I was at Chris and Mercedes' house, and I remember Chris came running downstairs, and he's like, it's over. It's done. The tape just came out that Trump said he wants to grab actresses by the pussy, or, grab them by the pussy, blah, 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 blah. It was literally the day the tape came out.
Yeah.
And we were all like, oh my God, blah, blah, blah. It was a huge story at the time, if people don't remember, that there was this tape, actual tape of Trump saying he likes to grab starlets by the pussy, and, he just, when you're a star, you can do whatever you want with them. So I go home that night, and in the middle of the night, I'm woken up that my uncle, my super Christian uncle, has died of a heart attack. And I'm not lying. I really do think that what happened that day, I think he already had heart issues, but I think what happened that day was so upsetting to him as a Christian, and he liked Trump and blah, 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 that I really do think it killed him. I really do think
it crushed him.
Yeah. And it just made him so emotionally upset that that night he had a heart attack and died. You know what else I was talking about that I struggle with? I think a lot of my more and look, everyone should know I'm a Democrat and whatnot, but I struggle, and I wonder how you feel about this in Florida there, Taylor, is that, I've been sort of entrepreneurial my whole life, and the people who have helped me the most in my entrepreneurial spirit have been hardcore Republicans. I was talking to a friend yesterday about how this one girl I went to grade school with, when I first started my tutoring business, she was, at the time, an editor of like a local newspaper, and she brought in local business leaders to meet me. She promoted it in her newspaper. It really helped get the business off the ground. And I remember later, another hardcore Republican, she had an office in Newport Beach. She let me use the tutor students for free for about 2 years. For free. Absolutely for free. Just come in and do this. I had tutored one of her children, and both of her children, actually. And she just let me she offered it, and she let me do it. And so it's weird that I struggle, and that they're both of them, I know they're both Trumpistas, Yeah. And it's something I struggle with, because here they are, so, they worship this man who's so hateful, but yet they've been so, I've had a lot of Republicans be very, very kind to me, and very wonderful to me.
I think not all Republicans are bad people. I definitely feel like there are people that can separate, I think there are, I have clients. I have gay male clients who talk about how great they think he is. Oh, really? And I just sort of look at them while I'm digging my fingernails into my chair while they're talking. Like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, he's doing everything he can to take away this. Yeah. You're talking to me like, do you get that if he gets his way, like, funding will be taken away, and then you won't have mental health counseling for free anymore. So, it's very hard to not argue with them, but these are genuinely good people that just maybe they have certain beliefs, or it's been hammered into them over generations of where our family has always been a Republican, and you could be a Republican too. But it's something I definitely struggle with. I think that when we see you've got Republicans, and then you've got his base. You have the people that no matter what he does, no matter what's going on, he's always right, because he's sticking it to the man. And we had to deal with a black president for 8 years, so you can deal with this for now, and all this kind of stuff. And the pendulum swinging the other way. And those are the people that are scary to me. Those are the people that I feel like we're at the point of no return with them. I feel like there's a group of Republicans that they're more closer to the Venn diagram, the center of the Venn diagram, than we give them credit for, And I but I mean, the opposite is true, that there are Democrats. There are Democrats who are assholes.
Yeah. Oh, trust me, I know. Bill Maher.
Yeah. No. Right. So we could go on and on about.
Oh, I have like 5 stories in my bed. This is not a political show, or is
no? I know it's not a political show. Or this one kind of is, in that I think that I'm so turned around. Actually, I am very much Gigi Gooden, that talking about politics is very intimidating to me. Not intimidating, but it's very anxiety inducing for me. And after the last election, I have pretty much been at a heightened state of anxiety since November of 2016. Yeah, I am, as many of us are. And I have imagined what it would be like in November. Both ways. If he continues for another at least 4 years, because I think he will do something to try to change it to where he is in power after that, or what it will be like if the Democratic nominee, at this point it looks like it will be Biden, wins. And I don't know what my reaction is going to be to either one. I don't know, because even honestly at this point, if Biden wins, or the Democratic nominee wins at this point, I will not believe it until he is standing in front of the Capitol. He or she is standing in front of the Capitol in January. That is my. I truly think we are not going to go gently into that good night.
I mean, I have different thoughts on that than you, but what I will say, what I do worry about, is that. there's almost a small part of me that wants Trump to win. Hear me out. As much, even though he'll do a lot of, actually, I really don't. But the reason I'm making a rhetorical point, which is what I worry about is Biden wins, takes over, he's the president, and then he's left holding the bag after all the damage that Trump's done over the 4 years. Now the person who has to clean up the mess, once it's time to pay the piper for all the damage that's happened. And then the Republicans are very good, especially through Fox and whatnot, of turning around and going like, oh my God, the economy fell apart. It's because Biden's the president. Oh, look, these horrible things are happening because Biden's the president, because the Democrats are in charge. Look at these horrible things are happening. Not realizing that it was the 4 years of the Trump administration that set that up.
But I also feel like we kind of saw that with Obama.
Yeah, of course.
Where Obama coming in, where they tried to do that, but eventually Obama pulled it out. So, but
they do it now. They say, look, Obama, and you're like, well, the whole economy. Never underestimate the Republican media's, the right media's ability just to straight up lie. Like even now, I know this is gonna date this show. Currently, the big news is that President Trump advocated people inject bleach into their. It's so funny how you can't even make this up anymore. And actually, Paulette made this very good point in the first response: is that how do you do, even though they taped this in the summer, how do you do a parody of political elections when the reality is so much beyond parody? Does that make sense? And it's like, and so now his whole thing is that he was just being sarcastic when he said inject. So often, I will be honest with you. There are sometimes where I feel the left will take every little. Sometimes he is being sarcastic, and the left will take it. Oh my God, he said this, right? So I went to go look. He is 1,000% not being sarcastic.
Yeah,
he is 100% being serious. He's in the middle of a conversation about serious things. No one's asked him anything. He says if someone asked him a question, he said it sarcastically. And they will just lie. They have no problem with lying, and the Trumpistas will just repeat whatever Fox News tells them to do. It's crazy.
Yeah. This show has made Veep not funny anymore.
Yeah.
Because when you would watch Veep before, it just felt like, oh God, it would never get that bad.
Yeah.
It would never be that ridiculous. And now we've got somebody who is saying, I had years ago, when I was a case manager, I had a client who had heard that bleach would kill HIV, and he drank a cup of bleach thinking it would, and it caused him, he clearly got very sick and went to the hospital, and it like burned a hole in the lining of his stomach.
Did it cure his HIV though?
No, it did not cure his HIV. So I was an adolescent case manager. So I worked with people who were HIV positive between the ages of 13 and 26. And so he was a young guy and was not super bright and did this.
Let me ask you this question. Up until the age of 18, how many of them are getting it? Most of them are from blood transfusions, right? Or like, how are they getting HIV? Or through parents? Is that what it like?
I had two kids that I worked with who were 13 and 14, and they were born with it.
Yeah.
But the majority of the people that I worked with, they were the only two. Actually, no, that's not true. The one was born with it. The one got it through a blood transfusion back in the late 80s before they started testing for it. He was hemophiliac, and they. The rest of them all got it through sexual contact.
Wow.
I used to work with like underage male prostitutes and just kids who were sexually active. And I mean, I have stories from that time starting out in my career that I will never share with anybody. There were times that I thought to myself, I should have been killed looking for this kid in certain like areas and neighborhoods and houses I went into looking for kids and stuff, that it was very much a,
it's sort of
and some of those kids I still remember their name, and I still Google their names every once in a while just to make sure they haven't died.
It's so weird that you say that. I didn't know that part about your life, but it's one of these things where I've been blissfully oblivious. Like I didn't know. Like you're telling me this, I just said like, oh, but most of them were through blood transfusions. The thought of a person even under 20 just being so sexually active that they I know you only takes one time, by the way, and that sounded ignorant. But like, but just I don't know. It sounded. I don't know. That's awful. Anyway, let's talk about the debate that they had.
Oh yeah, we're talking about Drag Race.
Yeah, Rachel Bloom and Jeff Goldblum were the moderators, and after the questions, rebuttals, and closing statements, we get a little group twerk to Peanut Butter. What were your thoughts on the debate there, Taylor?
I thought that people did varying degrees of success, as with any challenge. It looked like Jeff Goldblum and Rachel Bloom were having fun during it. Particularly Jeff Goldblum looked a little confused, but he looked like he was enjoying being confused. I was pleasantly surprised at how well Jada did. I thought that, she deserved to win the entire challenge this week. Excuse me. But I also feel like everybody kind of had their moment. Everybody had a moment that was really good, with the exception of Widow. I don't quite get why they were the idea of the character, and we don't know how long it actually went on for, how long the actual challenge went on for. But the idea of Jackie occasionally bringing in Canadian references to things, and when Jeff says, I'm going to ask you a question, but I don't want you to answer with Canada, and she still answered with Canada, I thought that still played to the role of the character, that the character can't help but be overwhelmingly Canadian. So she's going to do that. So the fact that and I get that like Jeff and Rachel were sort of like rolling their eyes when she did it, but I felt like that was part of the skit. But then when they kind of called her out on that on the runway during deliberation, I thought was, I didn't quite get, that certain characters, it's okay for certain characters to act away, but not other characters.
Yeah, Taylor, I wasn't that big of a fan of the debate. There were a couple of maybe like laugh through my nose moments on some things that Jada, I would agree. Good thing Jada won, Taylor, because I do agree. It was very clear that she won from that challenge, and because it'd be really dumb not to know that Jada didn't win.
Yeah. I also didn't think Gigi was as bad as they were making her out to be. She kind of, again, but this is sort of where she's playing the same character all the time. But she was also playing it to two people that don't know that she plays that character all the time.
Yeah, but it's enough with the robot. I'm done with it. Right?
Okay.
She might as well whistle through her teeth. Okay, so now Taylor, though, let me put it this way. And I said this in the first response, the first thing I said in the show. I was whelmed. I wasn't underwhelmed. I wasn't overwhelmed. I was just whelmed by the debate. Somebody in the thing asked us, this is a good point to do it. Someone asked, how did you think this challenge, Spiral Queen asked, how did you think this challenge compared to the season 4 political debate? What did you think, Taylor?
I don't remember a lot about the season 4 political debate other than the Latrice comment of 5 minutes ago, I realized Miss O'Hara was ugly and I'm at peace with that.
Yeah.
And the response, the immediate cut to Chad laughing with that. That was the episode where Fifi referred to Latrice and Dita Ritz as the help.
Yeah.
When she was doing the, I don't remember a lot about that one. I don't know that I'll remember a lot about this one next week, but we laughed a couple of times at things, and I always enjoy watching when other queens laugh at when other queens are enjoying the art and enjoying the talent of their competitors. So watching Heidi, where Heidi kept chuckling, was that kind of was fun. I always example would be like the old Carol Burnett show where they would all try to make each other break and stuff. And that's kind of what that felt like with what they were doing. So in that regards was enjoyable.
All right. Very good. Well, Taylor, let's call that segment closed. And now, it's time for
the looks.
Hold on. I got to change the volume for that. There's a whole thing going on here. Now it's time for the looks. Okay, Taylor, this week the theme was Stars and Stripes Forever. Once again, remember, you only have the length of time. We're playing it right now. first, Crystal Method.
Crystal Method comes out in a light blue, almost like a pencil skirt with a blazer over her shoulders that has stars and stripes. She's wearing a fedora. I liked this look. Blue hair, great nails, great gloves, very 80s chic inspired. Very much enjoyed it.
Heidi in Closet.
Heidi in Closet came out with very 40s inspired hair and sort of like a USO girl, USO dancer, but she has on hooker boots that is all spangly. It's all red, white, and blue. I thought she looked great. I loved her makeup, but the wig was everything to me for this look. I absolutely love the wig.
The Widow Von Du.
Widow Von Du went a little different with this, with wearing black and white and having his dress that was stars and stripe with a big afro. I thought Widow looked amazing with this. I loved Widow's makeup. I thought it definitely was maybe the strongest makeup she's had all season, and very much enjoyed it. The stars looked very uncomfortable to walk around the star appliques that were on it.
Jackie Cox.
Jackie Cox comes out in a stars and stripes hijab with where the main body of the dress is red and white stripes, and the hijab around top is a beautiful blue, like a blue with stars on the border. She looked great statement of a dress.
Gigi Good.
I loved this look so much. I love Revolutionary War, just stuff about that. That's my favorite era of history. So this was a very sexy version of that. I was surprised she had on a red coat, just because red coats were what the British wore. However, Nita West already kind of did this with the blue, so maybe that's why she decided to do the red. But I loved everything about Gigi's look as a Revolutionary War officer.
Jada Essence Hall.
Jada Essence Hall comes out wearing red, white, and blue bodysuit. That is very like bicentennial. It reminds me of something of like that time era. It's great. She kind of looks like a superhero. The one thing I did not like the red, white, and blue curls in the front of the hair, which was sort of like almost like a mohawk inspired type hair. But the dress, she looked like a superhero from a 70s Saturday morning cartoon, and I loved it.
All right, very good. Actually, this is something that Jada's outfit is something that I could see RuPaul wearing, especially old school RuPaul.
When the one and only time I've ever seen RuPaul in person was back on the March on Washington in 1993, and she wore an outfit that was kind of similar to that, but it was very a little bit more Wonder Woman inspired. But she wore something similar to that, and that, if we had more time, I was going to actually add that in. That it felt very much something old school 90s RuPaul would wear.
All right, very good. Do you have anything else to say about the looks?
I liked just about all of them. I thought it was it was a light looks, but they were all enjoyable.
All right, very good. All right, I want to reiterate, and we're going to say here, I'm going to say two things. One, first, let's talk about the people who don't support us on Patreon. That's fine. Like I told you, for the quarantine, to not celebrate the quarantine, but to help you get through the quarantine, we've released all the episodes, not necessarily all the way up till the end of 2019, but everything mostly before 2020 we've released. And before, we have an exciting announcement for you. Before, it was such a pain in the ass to go get those episodes. Now we've partnered up with a company called Acast. So if you look in the show notes now, there is a link to a feed, okay? If you just, in your phone, click on that link and add that link to your favorite podcast provider, like Overcast or Apple Podcasts or Pocket Casts or Acast. You can get all those free shows in its own little feed on your podcast. So just go to the show notes for this episode and do that. Now, for the Patreon supporters, now that we've gone to Acast, I'm trying to reach as many people as I can. Very few of you, for a very small number of you, you have had some problems with the transition. If you have had problems, email me at joebetance@afterthought.media, and we will help you get those problems taken care of. If you're not getting the episodes, you should be getting them. All right, very good. Taylor, Sherry, Heidi, and Crystal are named safe on the main stage, while Jada is awarded the win after Gigi narrowly escapes the bottom two. Widow and Jackie are left to the lip sync for their lives. The song, Firework by Katy Perry. Jackie delivers a sparkling lip sync and is told, Shantae, you stay, while Widow Von Du is asked to sashay away. Taylor the Latte Boy, any final thoughts on the episode?
I have a lot of thoughts. Can we talk about the whole controversy or everything that was talked about regarding Jackie's look and the whole Jeff Goldblum thing? Because we had said we would talk about that a little bit more.
Sure.
What are your thoughts about all of that?
Everyone's really mad at Jeff Goldblum. Honestly, I think it's a fair question. Perhaps maybe on a more serious show. You know, maybe if you were on Project Runway or a show that takes itself more seriously. But Drag Race has started to take itself more seriously. I think it's a fair question, right? And by the way, it would be a fair question for any mainstream religion, whether if someone came out dressed in the traditional garb of Catholicism or Christianity. If they came, like I think it came out dressed as a priest or something. I don't know if that question would be asked, but it's a fair question for any mainstream religion about their problems with homosexuality and other things. And so, but you know, everyone's mad at Jeff Goldblum for what I think is a fair question. But also, they can, you know, I never edit anything out of this show. You guys just get the real raw feed. But what about the editors leaving that in? You know, the editors didn't have to leave it in. There's no way we would have known that this was the case.
Well, I guess my question is, and maybe I was sort of half paying attention at that point, or I was distracted with some other stuff going on, that he was asking that question. Was he questioning? Is your interpretation that he was questioning Jackie as to why she would wear something that has been known to be anti-homosexuality, anti-gay, you know?
It was my impression. Go ahead.
No, I'm asking.
Yeah,
I'm asking
my
you.
impression, I'd have to rewatch that moment again, but my impression was that he was delivering her a softball question to allow her to make a statement about that. Does that make sense? Like, are you religious? In other words, he was handing her a softball to have that moment. I don't think he was... I didn't get the impression. I don't get that impression from Jeff Goldblum's personality. I get the impression he was trying to give her a softball to hit out of the ballpark, if that makes sense. You know,
which I think he did.
Yeah, and also I think RuPaul did a tremendous job answering as well, saying that, you know, it is the job of, and I think that's probably why they kept it in. I don't think they kept it in to be salacious to Jeff Goldblum. I think they kept it in because RuPaul got to make a statement that I think that was really important. At the job of drag is to fight against those kinds of oppression and to turn the mirror on society of drag and to hold it up for ridicule or study, you know?
Yeah.
And, you know, Nicholas Alexander Spring says Jeff's question has created dialogue through which I think is a positive. It might have been tone deaf, but look at us now discussing it all. Yeah, very good point. Like, it's not bad to have political discourse and to talk about. I didn't take it as an attack on Islam. I took it as a legitimate question. I mean, this is something that is real, and it's not saying that all Muslims are like this. It's asking Jackie, do you believe? I might need to pull up that moment. We need to hear it. Let's see here. I got to pull it up.
Are you religious, may I ask?
I'm not, and to be honest, this outfit really represents the importance that visibility for people of religious minorities need to have in this country.
Isn't this an interesting wrinkle, though? Is there something in that religion that is anti-homosexuality and anti-woman? Does that complicate the issue? I'm just raising it and thinking out loud and maybe being stupid, but
No.
What do you think?
I think, you know, drag has always shaken the tree. so to speak. And there are so many different layers to this presentation. And if it was ever going to be done, this is the stage to do it.
It's a complex issue. I have my own misgivings about the way that LGBT people are treated in the Middle East. And at the same time, I am one. But what is so important is, to me, that if you just happen to be different, then live that truth. And when the Muslim ban happened, it really destroyed a lot of my faith in this country and really hurt my family. And that's so wrong to me. And I had to show America that you can be LGBT and from the Middle East, and there's going to be complicated around that, and that's okay. But I'm here, and I deserve to be in America just as much as anyone else.
Everything you're saying really registers with me. At the end of the day, this country is for everyone, and I'm so sorry that this has happened to your family.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, so if anything, this is, again, just sort of, I think, just highlighting that like, I don't know, maybe it, go ahead. What were you going to say, Taylor?
I think him asking the question, he wasn't asking the question from a place of saying Jackie's wrong in doing this. Mm-hmm. I think he was, sometimes we all have had situations in which we realize in order for a conversation to continue, we have to play the part of the devil's advocate or the asshole or the, or just, I don't understand, I have, this kind of reminds me of, I have without getting too much into stuff with a particular client, I had a client come to me once early on in my career here in my current position and tell me that she is someone that I saw when she was male. And she came to me and said, I need to talk to you. I need to say this out loud. And I said, okay. And she said, I'm a woman. I'm a woman. I felt this way for a long time. And I feel like I'm finally at a place where I can start moving towards that transition. And one of the things that I remembered saying is, first, thank you for allowing me to be the first person you told about this. And I remember saying at one point to her, I am going to ask stupid questions because this is not my forte. This is not something where, I only know what I've seen on TV shows and stuff like that. And I said, so please know that if I ask a question, it is coming from a place of genuinely, I may be ignorant to it, but I'm not an ignorant person. I am trying to grow and I am trying to learn. Mm-hmm. So in listening to Jeff Goldblum say that might be where Jeff was with this, and that he was saying, well, this has been always what I've learned. I'm not trying to, as he said, maybe I'm being stupid, but I don't understand why, it's adding as he said, I think a wrinkle to the whole thing. Mm-hmm. So that might be where this is coming from. And we may be at a place where that sometimes we have to ask those questions and kind of be willing to stand there with egg on our face to grow and to learn.
No, if you think about it, I had suggested, why did they leave that in? But now that I see it, they had to leave it in, because if you had not left it in, you wouldn't have RuPaul's remarkable statement on the thing, on the topic. Mm-hmm. You wouldn't have had Jackie Cox's beautiful answer to him. And it's only through discourse and Rachel Bloom's, I think Rachel Bloom says something very intelligent to her as well. We only grow through discourse. If we just if we're too afraid to say things or ask questions because we're afraid of how we're going to be perceived, or if we're going to hurt people's feelings, we're never going to grow. In fact, it's in the darkness like that bigotry and chauvinism fester, because then you don't ever learn. If you don't ever learn, if you don't ask questions, I didn't know anything about Judaism, really, much at all, until one of my big contracts through my old company, was with a Jewish high school. They were a big contrast. And it was through them that I've made some remarkable friends, but also learned about Judaism and religion. And, you know, in the Jewish religion, it's sort of asking questions, which Jeff Goldblum, by the way, is Jewish. It's through asking. It's a religion that fosters education and questioning and asking questions and learning. And did I say festers or fosters? I mean fosters. And so I think it's part of Jeff's background to try and learn. And I feel like we can't be so sensitive all the time. That's how I learned about Judaism. That's how I learned to love Judaism. And in terms of also all those religions, particularly Christianity as an umbrella and also Islam, is often people make the mistake of thinking that the beliefs of the people in those religions are uniform throughout. But if you think about it, there are more people who are Roman Catholic than there are people in the United States. Okay?
Yeah.
And if we, as there, 300 million plus of us, if we all can't agree politically and on what it is to be an American, what makes you think that Roman Catholics or Islam, which is even just as big if not bigger, there's all different shades and facets of Islam. So we shouldn't have this view that they're all this monolithic entity that has no shades, nuggets, and nooks and crannies. You know,
well, it goes back to our conversation earlier of Republicans and Democrats.
Yeah.
Not all Republicans are horrible people, and not all Democrats are, wonderful.
Yeah.
And we're all varying shades.
Gosh.
We all fall on that. We all fall on that spectrum. People of various religions. That's the exact same thing.
Yeah. And so I still think we can't be afraid of discourse, even if it's ugly discourse. I don't think this was coming from an ugly place. I think it was coming from a genuine question, because here's the deal. And unfortunately, this is the way it is in this country right now. I think hijabs are beautiful. I love them. I love seeing it. I think this was actually,
I agree.
It might be my favorite outfit. But to wear for a drag queen on television, to wear a hijab that has the 50 stars and stripes on it, you're making a political statement. Whether Jeff Goldblum asked the question or not, you're making a political statement by wearing that on a major television network as a gay man in drag who says he's not out, correct? Isn't it? We learned that either he's not out or people don't know he does drag in his family or something?
I think some family members don't know that he does drag.
Yeah. And so he's making, this is a political statement that not just reverberates throughout the country and society, but also in his personal life. Imagine what his family might feel to see their son dressed as a woman and in a hijab, Yeah. So he's making a political statement as it is. And so to ask about it out of genuine curiosity, I don't think is a bad thing. I think we've become too triggered too easily. And we need to just be able to have conversations. You know what's so funny? And you can talk about this, because I know you're a fan of the 70s. People who get triggered, I would suggest you go watch the old television shows from the 70s, like Good Times or All in the Family or Maude. Those shows, there was something that happened in the 70s that there was this weird, just brief decade, maybe because it was post Vietnam hippie movement and right between the selfishness of the 80s, there seemed to be this decade of just, let's be honest about race and class, and those sitcoms tackled that in a way that you've not seen since.
They showed both sides. A lot of the Norman Lear shows showed both sides. Now, a lot of times the perspective of the more conservative member of the debate was sort of laughed at, i.e. Archie Bunker would be, or even George Jefferson was a lot of time. They were sort of the clown compared to the other. But there were also times in which they showed their perspective from a genuine, this is something where we can be different. We can have different viewpoints, but we can come together. Yeah. So I agree with you. If you can watch any of those old, particularly anything that was produced by Norman Lear.
Yeah.
They really, really address that a lot. And even to some degree, not quite as much, but like Mary Tyler Moore, the old Mary Tyler Moore show, in terms of the women's movement and what it was like for women to work in the workforce, particularly in a workforce where that was predominantly men.
Yeah.
A lot of that stuff, you're right. We didn't really see that. It turned into the 80s kind of turned into after school specials type stuff on a very special episode of, whereas a lot of those shows, they were all very special episodes of, but it wasn't necessarily promoted in that way.
Well, I think the Reagan era ushered in a whole new perspective that was different.
Yeah.
And we've seen now, and then maybe the 90s brought in this political correctness where those questions can't even be asked, you know?
Yeah.
And we have to get to a place where we can ask those kinds of questions, you know? And have those kinds of discussions. Okay. All right. Is there anything else you want to say? You know, one thing I wanted to comment on was that, you know, I had this theory last time that that they had to do Celebrity Drag Race because they have to distract from Sherry Pie, and we're seeing that as they winnowed down the contestants, that Sherry they can't erase her anymore. I didn't watch Untucked, but was she a presence on Untucked?
She was a little bit of a presence in the beginning of Untucked.
Okay.
So.
And so I think we're going to see more and more of her as the weeks progress, and so get ready for that. The other thing I wanted to talk about was I made some statements last week about Jan. Taylor, it still boggles my mind how many messages on Instagram at dragracerecap@gmail.com, on Patreon, of all these people who needed to tell me, Joe, you just don't understand. And to tell me why I was wrong about Jan. And they made these like fantastic logical leaps and bounds. One of them, and I know who it is, but I don't want to call people out on the air, was telling me about how, no, Joe, you don't understand. She is this season's Katya, Latrice, Ben de la Creme. And I was like, first of all those people went home in like, I think 5th place. Oh, Darian Lake. No, they didn't do Darian Lake. It was Ben, Latrice, Katya, somebody else. It's iconic, right? And now first of all, they all went home in 5th place, and they're like, to even put Jan in the same sentence as those people, you're like, no.
Yeah. That's she's a talented queen.
Yeah.
She will get a lot of followers. Mm-hmm. If she doesn't already have it. Mm-hmm. She will be beloved, but I think that she didn't have the right energy. We start watching the show about 10 minutes before the next episode. So I watched the lip sync again because I made the statement that Widow, that was one of the best lip syncs ever on the show. Mm-hmm. And I would say it's definitely in the top half.
Okay.
I think I was just feeling my emotion. Last week, work has been, y'all don't understand. Work's been really rough the last couple of weeks. So I'm definitely in my feelings a lot right now. But it still was really good. But when you watch Jan in that, it speaks to the energy. The energy that Jan has is an amazing amount of energy, which I think is maybe why they addressed it in the beginning of this week's episode. But the energy did not sync with what Rue is looking for in a drag winner.
Yeah.
She is frenetic, and she is manic, and she is marching to the beat of her own drummer, but that drummer is almost like, 180 beats per minute kind of thing. Whereas that's not Rue's energy. So it makes sense that she would not be the winner of this, and that when Rue and all of the other girls, the contestants, are trying to tell her, slow down, you're moving too fast, she chose to or couldn't hear what they were saying.
And here's the thing too. Look, I want to reiterate, because sometimes people listen to me, and because I am not sucking Jan's dick, even though I would, they think I hate her. I don't hate her. I thought she was fine. And if I'm being quite honest, I don't know if you agree, let's say Widow went home last week. Jan probably would have been home this week. I mean, she only would have lasted one more week. Can you imagine this Jan on this thing? It would have been about, the Jantasy in 2020 and the Jantastic and a Jan favorite You know, everything that has, you know, like an N in front of it, you know, Janthrax. Right. That's what I wanted to take when I watched her. I
think
Janix.
You're right. I think we knew.
Yeah,
Janix. We knew last week Widow was going home this week. Not from like rumors or stuff, but you were watching the arc, and we've been watching this arc with Jan where they've been saying to her, "You're not giving us what we want."
Mm-hmm.
And unless there had been a complete 180 this week, whether it was Widow or Jan that stayed, that person was going home. There's too many girls and too many strong girls that really haven't been in the bottom yet, or that aren't beloved, i.e. like a Heidi, that aren't beloved by Rue, that she can't not start whittling people down.
Yeah.
You know, there's been part of me that's been surprised because of the way she did the first 2 episodes where nobody went home. I'm surprised we haven't had a double elimination yet.
Wait, I'm trying to dig through my trash. I had a list of all the queens, but I was going to say, if you go through all the queens, like Crystal and Heidi are safe because regardless of what you think of their talent, RuPaul adores them. Okay.
Yeah.
Then you have Jada, who's doing well. You have Sherry, who we don't see, but is doing well. Gigi, Jackie. Like, you're telling me that Jan is going to cut through that field?
Yeah.
You know? And who had, by the way, heretofore been ignored on the show?
Yeah, unless somebody that she loves, like Crystal or Heidi, really shits the bed.
Mm-hmm.
That would be the only thing I think at this point that would have saved Jan, or that would have gotten Jan this far. But I can't see. I could see Jan getting further than she did, but not going all the way. Yeah. I mean, at some point she was going to be eliminated because she's been sort of, her narrative has been, I never won a challenge. I want to win a challenge. And but it kept going to where they would say to her, you're not giving us what we want. But she kept sort of forcing that and saying, no, I'm going to give you, as we talked about on the Meet the Queens and everything else. You know, I can sing, I can dance, I can act, I could do this, I could da-da-da-da-da. Like, I think she kept thinking, if I just keep punching everybody in the face with this, eventually they go, oh, we didn't realize it. Well, here's the crown. Yeah. Let's just cancel the rest of the season.
Yeah.
Here's your crown and your scepter.
Yeah, I was just saying yesterday on a different show that when I was a kid, because I used to watch too much Little Rascals, I thought for anyone to break into show business, you had to know how to tap dance. Okay? And that's what it seems like Jan, now I was a child, but it seems like Jan still has that belief. You know, she can sing, she can dance, she can act. But like I said before, apart from Jinx, who had a sense of humor about it, which I don't think Jan seems very earnest in it. Where I think Jinx was musical theater, but in a sort of funny way, quirky way. What other winners have been such a strong musical theater background? And they're like, RuPaul's like, that's what we need, you know?
Yeah.
It just doesn't fit sort of the mold. And and again, I don't know why I'm doing this to myself, Taylor. I was literally getting ex-girlfriend, ex-boyfriend style level giant blocks of text. I had to scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll. I'm going to show you on camera right now, actually, one of them. And
cover up the name of the contact.
I will. But let me see here. Oh, here it is. I'm covering up the name. Look at this. Let me see. I'm going to use a Post-it to cover it. That'll make it easier. Okay. Okay. Look at this. Look at that. This is all about Jan. Let me see when it can focus. Okay, look at this.
Oh.
About Jan, Taylor.
Okay, well, but we have very passionate, this show has very passionate fans of Drag Race.
Yeah.
And they have their we've had our favorites that have gone away, that have been eliminated before. We've had our favorites. I've had people that I didn't think should have won their season, and was disappointed when the person that, you know, my horse, as it were, didn't make it to the finish line. But it's ultimately, I think somebody like a Katya or a Latrice, that was kind of lightning in a bottle. That was where I don't know that we are going to see some, because I think the people are liking Jan now.
Yeah.
But I don't know that we're going to see, like 5 years down the line, people still love Katya. I don't know that we're going to necessarily see that same level of passion. But it's also because Katya is so unique in her style and her persona. Whereas I feel like Jan is talented.
Yes.
Don't get me wrong. But I also think that Jan is not a dime a dozen, but I think there are a lot more queens out there that are like Jan than there are queens that are like Katya, that weren't doing it when or before Katya was. I think that we have Katya clones out there now, but Katya was the original, whereas I feel like there have been other queens that were like Jan before Jan. Jan is definitely working, towards being one of these queens of, another year. Latrice, I think, is somebody, because it's her personality, that is somebody who was, and she was also so unique to the show. She was so, she was a dark-skinned, large, as in height and size, drag queen with this big, huge personality. But there was also something very endearing about her, and where you were drawn to her a little bit. But I would say that some of that has gone away, since I think she lost some of that cachet when she went on All Stars. I think people that loved Latrice kind of saw a little bit more of who Latrice was, and that's even gone away.
Yeah.
So for them to say that Jan is the next Katya or Latrice, I don't agree with that statement. I respectfully disagree with that statement.
Well, yeah. But I think it's people. It was literally all these people trying to logically explain to me why Jan. This was just complete highway robbery. I don't know. It's just, look. I like Jan. She's very talented, but I think she ran her course on this competition. And as I've stated before, this competition is not a judgment for the quality of your drag. There are drag queens who are very talented who do not make it very far. There are drag queens who've done very well who aren't very good drag queens. Okay.
Yeah.
It's how you do in this competition. It's not a statement. And I think drag queens, Jasmine Masters specifically, and a lot of them would agree. This is a show about how well you do on RuPaul's Drag Race. It is not a statement on your drag. Do not define drag by RuPaul's Drag Race. Drag is art, and art is subjective. Thank you. As the Boulay brothers.
Do you think Jan would be a good All-Stars candidate?
Okay. I mean, unless they run out of All-Stars.
See, but I kind of disagree. I think that do I think Jan would win All-Stars? No, but I think Jan would make for a good All-Stars contestant if we saw that she learned from this experience, of where then she could start giving Ru what, because ultimately it doesn't even matter how you do as what you are as a drag queen. It's really more what Ru thinks of you, as we've seen. I mean, Crystal is somebody, and Heidi are somebody that we have seen much stronger queens on this show.
Yes.
It is that they are adored by Ru, and that is part of the reason why. So I think it's something where if Jan could come back and show, I paid attention. I went back and I watched myself on the season, and I realized how I was acting. And now I want to give you what I think you want versus what I want to do for you. I could see her being on an All-Stars, and I could see her doing well.
I think what RuPaul sees in Crystal and Heidi is, even though we may not see, a lot of us are starting to see it with Crystal, and what we appreciate, and I'll use Katya as an example. Katya is a perfect example of this, of people who have no other, they know nothing else but to be their authentic selves,
Yeah.
And RuPaul has said this on her podcast numerous times, both she and Michelle, is don't try and produce yourself. And I think what Heidi, Crystal, and Katya have in common is that they are giving that authenticity that RuPaul loves. Okay. I happen to know from a very good source, a very high-level source, that when the cameras weren't rolling, RuPaul told Crystal, okay, You know, I had doubts about you as a contestant when we cast you, but I am now very, very glad you're in this competition. Okay? And I think it's because Crystal, no matter, even if she's like, in other words, when RuPaul said, "What's your platform?" and Crystal's like, "I don't know." I mean, that's something that, like, I think there's an authenticity to it that RuPaul appreciates. Okay? And same thing with Heidi. Heidi can't help but be who she is. And I feel with Jan, she has the charisma, but she has the talent, she has the nerve. I don't think she has the uniqueness. I think we've seen this drag queen type a million times, but 2, the charisma, you're right. If she could somehow find a way to, I don't think we ever saw the authentic Jan. Now, it could be that because editors or whoever decided not to show us too much of Jan, you know, but I don't think I ever got a true sense of what is Jan like when she's by herself. We always saw Jan, they even commented on, so to speak, you know, at the beginning of the show, where Jan was always super high energy. No, people aren't really high energy like that in real life, authentically, all the time. You know?
Unless they're in a manic episode.
Yeah, unless they're in a manic episode. And so I think what we wish we could have seen was the more manic Jan. I mean, even think about the moment she got the most attention for was when she cried. The blast was that it was because she lacked authenticity. You know, I was talking to Sirius XM radio host Larry Flick from formerly of One-on-One with Larry Flick on Sirius XM Radio, EJ Entertainment Radio, Channel 105. And he was telling me that Michelle said on the official World of Wonder podcast that everybody knew on set that she wasn't really crying about Britta.
Yeah.
You know? That Michelle said this on their podcast. Like, so if anything, if she were more authentic and said, "I'm crying because I'm sad I didn't win," I think people would have respected it more, at least the people who are making the decisions, than like, "I'm crying because my friend left."
Yeah.
So, anyway, let's call it a day there, Tara.
All right.
Yeah. It's been fantastic talking to you about this. John Tay, you stay. Jan, that's going to do it for this week's episode of RuPaul's Drag Race Recap. This episode was produced by Luke Stan. Be sure to join us next week and every week as we continue to discuss, dissect, and deconstruct each Jan-U episode of RuPaul's Drag Race Season 12. So, for Taylor the Latte Boy and myself,
Jan Tay away until next week.
Thank you for listening to RuPaul's Drag Race Recap. Have something to say? Email us at dragracerecap@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Drag Race Recap. If you want access to more Season 12 content, support us on Patreon at patreon.com/afterthoughtmedia. You can follow Taylor the Latte Boy on Twitter and Instagram at PIMCTaylor. Follow Joe Betance on Twitter and Instagram at Joe Betance. That's JoeBetance. The theme song was written by Lucian Piani and arranged and performed by Alex Lefebvre. This episode was produced by Luke Stamen. Drag Race Recap is an Afterthought Media podcast.